Hi, my name is Josh Hunking. I'm an attorney in the Willamette Valley of Oregon.
I'm Janine. I'm working for Josh.
What's your job title?
Special Projects Manager.
Nice.
Special
manager.
project.
You added manager. I like that.
I said manager.
Okay, fine. You could be a manager if you
wanted
want.
to spice it up.
Titles are lame.
You said manager. And when
Okay,
you offered it.
great. You're a manager.
Okay.
Yeah, that's cool.
Okay. Anyways, we're answering questions today. First question is, what is justice?
Justice is the resolution of injustice.
Okay, this is a heavier question. Let's kind
It's
of
not
dive
heavy.
into. Yeah, it kind of is. 'Cause
not.
It's very subjective. I don't think you can write it off as like, oh, this is what it is, and
That's all
you
that it
have to
is.
accept it. No, maybe to someone else it's different.
What do you think justice is?
Well, I think it's what you think, but I don't think most people think that's what it is. I think you have to understand a lot of the like intricacies of law and like politics and people, and you have to understand people.
You have to understand people for sure.
I think law too, because you have to understand what's like realistic and what, because you can't just say, oh, everyone has to feel like they are equally represented, and everyone has to like have the same starting off place in life, and like the same, I guess, opportunities and capitalism, whatever they want to say it is. I think to everyone it's different, which is why I think you have to kind of have a general understanding of how things work before you have an opinion.
I don't think any of that matters. You just need to understand people.
No.
Yeah, the example that I always give is I got 2 3-year-olds and 1 popsicle. I give a popsicle to one of the 2 3-year-olds. You as a human understand what's about to happen. Right? What's about to happen?
No, because what I'm saying is if people don't have a general understanding of how the system works, then their definition could be skewed into something that's not realistic. Like, oh, everyone has to be given the same amount of whatever, money for college or resources, and they have to have, everyone has the same rights, but people could dive into a bit more of like preferences of what they want people to have.
But that has nothing to do with justice.
Well, maybe to them that's how you do it.
Well, okay, and if I just went through with Tarsa a very long conversation about what is justice. We did it over the course of several days. We did it mostly via text message because she's a philosophy major, so she's got pretty strong opinions about what justice is. The end result of what my theory is that you just have to understand how to map the world around you. You have to understand what the world is. And so if you try to create a map for how the planets and the sun revolve around the earth, you're going to have a very complicated, convoluted map of how that happens. Because that's not how it happens. Because, in fact, all the planets revolve around the sun. And once you realize that all the planets revolve around the sun, it's actually very easy to map the rotation. Maybe it's not super easy, but it's a heck of a lot easier than trying to answer a question while starting at the wrong point, right? So a lot of people will try to define what is justice, and they talk about procedural justice and substantive justice and, these metrics of justice and what is just, where truly, in my opinion, they're starting at the wrong point, because the analogy I think that best fits is surprise versus non-surprise, right? Right now, are you surprised?
No.
Okay. I could do something that would put you into the position of surprise. To move you from the position of surprise to non-surprise is the same as moving you from the position of injustice to justice. It's a thing that exists within us, the injustice, right? It's possible that the sun feels injustice, that it perceives a sense of injustice and it needs to be righted, but not in a way that I can understand, not in a way that I can do anything about. And I probably doesn't feel a sense of injustice. I don't think that the rock that is the sun actually feels injustice. Like humans and animals feel injustice in the world. So the injustice is the movement from the stasis of justice. We start right now. Do you feel wronged?
No.
I could do something to make you feel wronged. And then how do I achieve justice? I get rid of the thing that made you feel wronged.
Yeah, okay. Well, we'll come back to this. What did Tarsa say? I'm curious what she said, because
Let's go ask her.
She's not here. She's on break, but what did she tell you? What did she think justice was? The first conversation you had. Don't talk about like the last thing you guys kind of come to the conclusion of.
The first thing is human rights exist and they're objective within the world. That's where she started.
What do you think about that?
That's wrong. That's just wrong.
How is that wrong?
Because they don't exist without the humans. It doesn't exist without the people. You're starting at the wrong point. It's not this objective thing where God came down and said, this is what rights are. That's not what happened. It's humans start with justice, feel a sense of injustice, and have to get moved back to justice, or they take action on the fact that they feel injustice. So the justice is not external to humans or animals, because she's right about that. I think that if I have one pig ear and I give a pig ear to my one German Shepherd, my other German Shepherd is probably going to try to get that pig ear. That my dog is probably going to feel a sense of injustice that he didn't get one. I don't fix the injustice by taking the pig ear back from my one dog, because that's going to bother my one dog. I've now created more injustice. What you do is you get another pig ear and give it to the other dog. That's how you actually get to justice in that set of circumstances. And if I give both dogs a pig ear, there's no like injustice. I don't think they feel like.
How likely do you think it is to have that kind of framework in like politics and stuff? Or
in
the world?
humans?
Yeah, like, well, to look at it that way, like, well, if you give it to one, you have to give it to the other one.
That's a solution to a problem. That's a solution to a problem under those circumstances. Humans are, in my opinion, a little bit more complicated than the animals.
I don't know. I think if you give a cookie to me and not to Rohan, he'll feel some feeling of injustice.
Maybe, but if I say something mean to my one dog, maybe they would feel a sense of injustice. Let me try to come up with another example. Well, our ability to understand and record information over a period of time may indicate a higher capacity to feel injustice, which may make it more complicated. In one of the scenarios where I have found most difficult to get to a sense of justice is parents of a murdered child. That is a group of people who have a sense of a feeling of wrongedness, and some of that wrongedness is coming from pain at the loss of their child, the sort of unnatural feeling you're not supposed to outlive your children, and that somebody else caused that. And so those people in that circumstance, I don't know that I've ever found a parent who has achieved justice when their child was murdered, no matter what you do.
Even if you kill the
Even if you kill the other person, even if you put them in jail for forever. I've never met one. And that's anecdotal knowledge. That's not necessarily great knowledge. It's possible that there are people who are in that category who have been able to achieve justice. But that looks to me to be one of the most intractable conflicts that exists, one of the longest lasting feelings of injustice. Whereas, and I'm sorry for interrupting you, but to relate it back to animals and the lack of complexity within animals is I think that even if you murder the puppy of one of my German Shepherds, I don't think that lingers over the course of my German Shepherd's life. Now, it's possible that it does, and I just can't understand it because I can't see the world from the perspective of a German Shepherd perfectly. I'm not a German Shepherd. But I doubt it. I think that our ability to understand future and past better than an animal can, I think gives us more complicated and longer lingering senses of injustice.
Well, so you brought up like the parents of a murdered child
Yeah.
and how they can't shake the feeling even if you kill the person who, I guess the murderer.
Yeah.
So, how do you achieve justice in situations like that? So there's nothing you can there's no standard you can set across the board for justice and getting people to kind of feel that, like, I was wronged, but now I feel like, okay, justice has been served.
I think you can solve it with an algorithm. I don't think you can solve it with a number. I think you can solve it with an algorithm. And so, for that particular conflict, I'm not sure there is a good answer. If there is, I don't know what it is. But in a lot of stuff, so was somebody mean to you in high school?
Yeah.
Okay. Do you feel a sense of injustice associated with the fact that person was wrong or mean to you in high school?
No, because I was mean back. So I served my own justice.
Okay. So you never once felt wronged?
No, because I'll whatever you dish up to me, I'll give it back.
Okay. And so they did it, which moved you from a sense of rightness in the world, justice, to a sense of injustice because you felt wronged by that person.
In school, maybe a professor.
Well, let's stay with this example. Okay. You felt wronged by that person who said something mean to you, right?
Okay.
Is that true?
Sure.
Okay. And you reacted to that and created your own justice. So what is justice in that circumstance? The resolution of the feeling of injustice, which you accomplished by taking action to be mean to that person.
Yeah, but you know what? I never said how I, came to serve my own justice. What if it was what if I killed her? You didn't know. What if I hit her?
Then maybe you created more injustice from somebody else's vantage point. But from your vantage point, justice is achieved.
Yeah, but I just don't think you can like justice is achieved across the board in situations like that. Like I think even if you, let's say someone, like I killed you, okay, I get the death sentence, I'm killed, and your wife is not going to feel like, you know, she has, like, justice has been served. She's still gonna feel like, you know what, like she took like the rest of my life from me. She took my like partner and maybe the father. Like, how do you get around feelings like that?
She might, and I think the only way you would ever have any ability to achieve that result is to ask her.
I feel like it's just a slippery slope, especially when emotions like that are kind of
Which is
involved
why we have a justice system, because if you don't resolve the conflict, humans will.
Well, how well do you think it's working?
I think it can do better. I think that, you know, if you're right with the escalation, right? The Hatfields and McCoys, the Bloods and the Crips, the Capulets and Montagues.
Like a vigilante, right?
No. It's just the growing sense of a feel. So here's a fact scenario, right? Your group of people wronged me because you pushed my cousin. Now, I wasn't there, but my cousin came back and said that you pushed him. And I was like, oh, man, that's wrong. We got to do something about that. If we have no system, no civil system of justice, and I don't mean civil versus criminal system of justice, the civilized manner by which we resolve this conflict, take him to court and sue him, where we figure out what the truth is and then say, okay, what's the damages associated with it to try to get to justice that way. We just do what we would otherwise do is, well, let's go push him back. And me and my cousin show up and we push him back. And then he trips and falls and he goes back. He says, these guys just came out of nowhere and they pushed me. And he goes and rounds up his buddies and they come back and they start punching. And then we start punching back. And then all of a sudden people are getting seriously hurt and people are getting killed. And we just devolve into a never-ending series of, well, you wronged me, I'm going to wrong you back. And it creates more injustice. It doesn't lead to peace and harmony, which is problematic because all of us are more capable than any of us.
Well, why do you think people don't feel satisfied with their perpetrator being served by like the law? Like it's not enough for them.
I mean, sometimes they do, right? One of the things that we do here is called a civil compromise, right? If you get certain types of crimes and they're eligible for a civil compromise in Oregon, we send an investigator out to the victim of the crime and say, hey, what's going to make you feel like no wrong has been done here? What's going to give you full satisfaction for the injury that you incurred? And you'd be surprised at what people say. Sometimes they're like, oh, yeah, no, I forgive that person. There is no sense of a feeling of injustice. Let me sign off on this. And there's a civil compromise. It gets pulled out of the justice system. You get a dismissal in the case and it's done and it's over. And that happens. I'll give you several fact scenarios where that happens. Two friends who have been friends since childhood. What are you looking at?
Good.
Okay. Two friends that have been friends since childhood go to a bar, get drunk, get mad at each other, and punch each other. One of them punches the other one harder than the other and gets himself a criminal charge for assault in the fourth degree. Send an investigator out. Hey, what do you think it would take to get you back to a feeling of justice? To which that guy's like, dude, I love that guy. Like, we just got into a fight. Like, I don't want him to get in trouble, man. I mean, it could have just as easily been me. And frankly, I was being a dick that day. So let me sign off on this thing and we'll be done with it. That's one scenario that exists. Another one that, like in the city of Corvallis, something that happens reasonably regularly. College students get drunk and then they wander off on their own and they think they're at their friend's house, but they're not. They're at some random person's house. And because they think they're at their friend's house and they're drunk, they try to get into the house, whether it's climbing through a window or, you know, rattling the door or trying to kick the door or whatever. From the perspective of the person inside the house, I get a burglar, right? From the perspective of the person trying to get into the house, I'm going into my friend's house. And so usually the police get called. When the police get called, oh my gosh, what are you doing? We've got, an attempted burglary, a trespass, whatever. A couple days go by, you send an investigator out to talk to the person and say, hey, this is what happened with this person. What do you think? How can I get you back to a feeling of injustice? And a lot of times you'll get, oh man, I've been drunk and stupid before too. We were scared at the time, which is why we called the police. Hey, there's a train. But nothing more needs to be done. I mean, I've done stupid things over the course of my life too, and they're okay with that. And so they just forgive it. You've achieved justice by just asking the question, what is it going to take to get you back to justice?
So is the difference in the degree to which they were affected, like either party?
Potentially, and there's a subjectivity to it. Some people, you can wrong them slightly and they'll never forgive you for it because it's the worst thing that could have ever happened. And they're just like that. They're just not as easy to get to justice as some other people are. Some people, you could wrong them very severely and they'll still forgive you and truly forgive you, and they won't feel a sense of a feeling of injustice. It just won't exist within them. And so, it's individual specific, but the path is still the same. You still got to resolve the injustice.
And what role do you think the law plays in justice?
Provides a civilized mechanism by which we determine rights and responsibilities and try to deflate the conflict so that there's not a continuation of the injustice as a result of self-help in response to the feeling of injustice.
And in which ways do you think it could improve in delivering justice?
With the criminal system, you could have... Well, okay, so we'll split it up. We'll split it up, civil, criminal, and administrative.
Okay.
So in the criminal system, efficacy, I think, is more of what you really need to have, right? Because if somebody's convicted on a second DUI and they go to 30 days jail and, oh my gosh, there's got to be more than that. I was so wrong of that person. Okay, fine, put him in for 60 days. Oh my gosh, that's not enough. All right, 9 months. We'll put him in for 9 months. And they get out and they still have the same thought process that causes them to get back in a car and drink and drive afterwards. You've done nothing to fix the problem. If you can instead say, hey, look at the science, and this is what How to Fix the World is about. That's what the whole book is about, plug. Nice. What you do is instead have an effective outcome in the sense of what can we do to convince this guy to never get in a car and drink and drive again. And if you can do that at a reasonable cost with that better idea, the sense of justice, I think, is going to be easier to achieve because anybody who feels wronged by the DUI can look at the proposed resolution and say, oh, well, this makes sense for the future, and can be more on board with, yeah, that's appropriate for justice. A lot of times people say, lay people in particular, they'll be like, oh, do whatever the law says. Do what would the law have you do on this, without understanding what that means, how that impacts people in the real world, and what the collateral consequences are of that choice, and whether it has any efficacy at all. And that's really what you want, is you want that efficacy piece. In the civil justice system, I think the barriers to entry are probably the biggest problem. If you could lower the price of lawyering, or have, like with a surgeon, you get like a surgical assistant. Okay, well, I'll say it like this. If I have a spot that I think might be cancer, or I've got, a fever or something like that, I don't need to see a surgeon to be able to deal with my fever. I can talk to a nurse practitioner and they can take my blood pressure and say, and, read the results of a thing. And, and so for a lower cost, a lower transaction cost, because that person doesn't have as much education, they're probably not getting paid as much for doing that work. They can give me the answer that I need. Instead, in the legal system, we don't have like sub tiers of, you're a lawyer's assistant, you're a certified paralegal. We just don't have those things yet where you can get access to somebody who can answer a relatively simple question that you don't really need a lawyer to answer. You really need just somebody who knows the system to be able to answer it. How do I get a name change done? If you have access there, you're going to be able to get a better outcome, because to get a divorce in like a contested divorce is like tens of thousands of dollars, right? And just to get simple stuff resolved means people will just walk away instead of actually dealing with the dispute and reaching a resolution, because it's so expensive to get to a resolution. Now, it does take little disputes and sort of says, if it's not a big enough deal for you to, pay some money to come in and get this resolved, it's not that big of a deal. We're not going to spend government resources on it. But you also, there's a balance there where in access to justice might be better. With administrative law, I think that most of the injustice there is procedural, where it's by design, right? It's supposed to be a truncated system where there's limited scope, and so you don't get a jury and all that kind of stuff. And if you feel like the bureaucrats have wronged you and the administrative law judge doesn't fix it, you sort of just walk away and be like, man, that sucks. And you walk away with a greater sense of a feeling of injustice in those circumstances. So to reduce injustices within the multitude of systems that exist for creating that sense of justice, I think there's different approaches that can create better outcomes for those systems.
But okay. All right. So do you want to wrap up?
Until next time.
No, just in case people kind of got lost in all the little detours we were taking. So
what is justice? Justice is the resolution of the feeling of injustice. Not more complicated than that.
Perfect. Until next time.
Until next time.
That's what I was asking for.